Hello, and welcome to another episode of Movies That Make Us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And we are marching right through Nicolas Cage November. Here we are on episode 3 of Nicolas Cage November. I can't believe it.
It's gone so fast.
I know. Thanksgiving is this week. This episode drops. We're already there.
I feel like this year went by so quickly, while as last year took 4 years to get through the year. But this year, I was like, wow, it's already over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When can we just have regular years that take regular amount of time?
Probably never again. I don't know.
Okay.
We screwed up the timeline.
That's been revoked.
Yeah. We haven't managed our time well, so now we don't get to anymore. So
Nope.
That's been
I just
rough.
want to let you guys know I did, for those of you that are watching, I combed my hair today. I put some
Nice.
makeup on, some jewelry, but I'm still wearing stretchy pants. So
Nothing
from
wrong
here
with that.
up, I'm living the 2020 life right here.
We don't
Getting down
we don't have to talk about what pants we're all wearing. From here up, we all look fine.
Please.
At least I'm wearing pants this week. Last week I didn't even bother.
Yeah. That's fair. Who's gonna know? Who's going to
And I've
know?
been thinking about that stupid crunch wrap last week, by the way. I have not been able to get the breakfast crunch wrap, and I feel like I'm not going to get it again today. Because by the time we get done doing this, breakfast will be over.
Yeah. It'll be too late.
Maybe you could do the Sunday brunch wrap.
Sunday brunch wrap?
Ooh, make it sound fancier than it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
Bring it home, put it on a plate, make a mimosa.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yes, absolutely. Get that in the China.
They sell a Mountain Dew orange flavored Kickstart drink at Taco Bell, so you could get that to make your mimosa, and then you've got a whole Taco Bell brunch going on.
Oh, you guys don't ever want to see me on Mountain Dew. It'll be 3 days of crazy, and then I'll just die.
Yeah.
It'll be like, when you spin a top and it's just like this, and then all of a sudden it just falls flat dead. That'll be me.
That's you on Mountain Dew.
Never Mountain
Dew. Into the Diet Coke.
It's like giving, feeding a Gonzo or whatever his name after dark. What's his name?
Gizmo.
Like after midnight?
Yeah,
Gizmo. Yeah. Feeding
Gonzo's
Gizmo
the
after
Muppet.
midnight. No,
Gizmo's the Gremlin.
I know.
I know.
It's the same letter.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I hate when I get there like, okay, I know it's like this name, but I know that is not the right name. So
now every time I hear Gizmo, I think of What We Do in the Shadows, because the character's name's Guillermo, but the vampires are too lazy to remember his name, so they just call him Gizmo.
Perfect.
So much stuff came out in the last couple of weeks. Jake, did you watch Wheel of Time?
I did. I watched the first 3 episodes of Wheel of Time, and I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Hey.
I got through one and a half episodes before I had to sleep and then move on to other things that I had to watch. But I liked it. Can I ask you one thing before we get into Nicolas Cage about this, though? Because I haven't read any of the books. Why does it take her so long to do magic? I feel like half the town is dead by the time she conjures up enough magic to kill 5 things.
So in the series, it feels weird that it takes her so long. Because you're right. The Trollocs come and everybody's dead and everything. In the
They're
book,
called Trollocs. Okay.
Or Trollocs. I don't know. But in the book, she doesn't want them to know that she's an Aes Sedai, so she's hiding that from them. So they don't know that she can do magic until the Trollocs attack. And so you don't know what she can do or anything. She's just this mysterious lady that showed up in the town.
Yeah.
And so in this, it's different because she comes in and basically Lan comes walking in, and then she follows in, and it's like, oh, Moraine Sedai, oh, and everybody knows that she's an Aes Sedai because she doesn't hide it. But in the book, she's hiding that and keeping that from them. So it makes more sense in the books. But yeah, in the show, it's like, okay, why did she wait until like the town's getting destroyed and then decides, okay, maybe now I'll whip out some of that magic. So
and then she destroyed that whole building.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save you guys, but whoever's in that building, y'all dead.
Yeah, you're toast. Sorry.
Yeah, you can't save everybody.
Why not?
Oh boy. Now we're gonna get into the Zack Snyder type conversation, Man of Steel, and I don't want to go there.
I did watch Hawkeye that comes out this week, and I will say one thing about it. There's one thing that I liked about it, and that was that it shows us what happens when heroes fight villains in a city where there's a lot of people. It kind of shows that the part that we don't see, that I feel like Disney's been doing a lot of in the most recent things, is like there's an aftermath of all of that fighting. And yeah, you can't save everyone. You're trying to save the bigger picture, but when that happens, other people die, and they kind of show that backside of it that we don't see.
I'm excited for that series.
I don't know if I'd get excited about it, but
it looks fun to me. Of course, I thought House of Gucci looked fun, and evidently it's terrible. So
it's not terrible. This is the thing. It's not terrible, but I feel like a lot of the trailers lately, and I would really like to do, I was going to pitch this today. I would really like to do a month of movies that hoodwinked us by the trailer.
Ooh.
So like we got, like, the trailer made it look like one thing, but then we got to the movie and it was a total other thing. So I feel like over the past like 5 years, there's been a lot of that where you see the trailer and then you go to the movie and you're like, this isn't anything. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. But with Gucci, the trailer makes it look super, super campy. And like these characters are like the Saturday Night Live characters of these real people. It's not that way. There are campy moments, but it's almost two different movies in one. And so there are some great moments where the acting in the movie is really fantastic, but that follows 5 moments that aren't. So it's just like, it will be nominated. For a lot of things, but I also think it was about 45 minutes too long. It's 2.5 hours, and it was bloated. It was just bloated.
Yeah, I feel like if we're talking about movies that hoodwinked us, again, we're talking about Zack Snyder and Batman v Superman this time. That made me think it was going to be a good movie, and then I went and saw it, and it was not. I know that's not what you mean. I know that's. I
want to call it like Catfish March or hoodwink something. Like I feel like Gucci catfished me. Like I had an idea about what it was because the tone of the trailer and the speed of the trailer was one way, and then you get in and it's a different thing. And so I think it'd be fun to do a month where we kind of talk about the movies that catfished us. And sometimes it can be great, and other times like you get in there and you're like, oh, this is way better than the trailer made it feel. And or you get in there and you're like, well, I thought this was going to be a comedy, but now I'm crying, I don't know.
So for that month, we won't be the movies that make us. We'll be movies that catfished us. Is that what we're going for? We're just going to call the podcast out for a month.
We'll just put the little triangle and put catfish up above it.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Cross out the make.
I like the idea because there are those movies out there, and I realize that we're talking about more than just that trailer made the movie look really good, and then it was really just I get that, but I think that there's some great movies we could talk about with that. That would be a lot of fun. So, man, I'm tired this month. Okay, here we go. So Nicolas Cage, Con Air is what we're talking about.
Jake's favorite Nicolas Cage film ever.
So I sent a message to you guys yesterday, and I had said I had never seen Con Air before we're doing this episode now. I knew it was a big name. I knew it was a big movie that Nicolas Cage was in, and we couldn't do Nicolas Cage November without talking about it, and I understand that. So I watched it for the first time, and I sent the message, and I said, I will never forgive you guys for making me watch this movie. But I want to explain, like, the movie for me is like Fast and Furious. Okay,
Uh-huh.
it's just a lot of cheese, and it's just over
Uh-huh.
the top cheese. And I get that that's intentional, and I get that that's enjoyable for people. For me, it was just too much. I don't consider I'm not lactose intolerant when it comes to cheese in movies, but I was definitely gassy at the end of this movie, for sure.
That might be the funniest thing you've ever said on this podcast. Well done. I'm not lactose intolerant to the cheese in the movie, but I was gassy.
I think that so last week we talked about National Treasure, and that one is a very that was a very commercial movie in that it kind of was made for everyone, right? It was made for a vast audience. It had the outline of a movie that was going to make a lot of money. It had, it was very structured to be what it was, right? This movie, Con Air, I think is even more that. This is the most commercial movie I think that Nicolas Cage has ever made, because it not only had the hot song that was out at the moment, which was really big at this time, is like, what big hot song are we going to put in the movie, where National Treasure didn't have that, right? But it opens with, this big song, and it closes with a big song that was really hot on the charts for radio at the same time. Not only that, you have all of these big actors and actor names. Now, I know this is a Nicolas Cage movie. It's supposed to be, but for me, it's more a movie for the ensemble. I think that it really showed what some other people could do in this movie. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But the commercialization of this movie, I think, is a big deal, because it is a Michael Bay movie. And I know a lot of people do not like the Bay. I don't mind the Bay. But this is the thing about Michael Bay movies that you have to understand, and why I think a lot of people don't like Michael Bay, is because he goes in and he takes every big moment from a movie, and instead of having the down moments, he makes them all big moments with the big music in the background. So if you take everything that you love about the big moment in Top Gun, the big moment in Armageddon, the big moment, in Con Air, Con Air is a big moment through the whole movie. It all has the crescendo music. Even when Buscemi is sitting at the table with the little girl and they're singing, it has the coloring of the big moment, and the music is coming up in the background like it's going to be something bigger than it is. Yeah. It just wants you to feel like it's a hero movie from beginning to end. Some people don't like that. I think it's hilarious. And so that's what this is, that commercial movie. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like it, is because there aren't any quiet moments in this movie. Even when there's supposed to be a quiet moment, there's not. But come on, that car flying behind the plane, that was beautiful.
Somebody has it out for Corvettes in this movie, because that's a classic, nice looking Corvette, and it's sad what happens to that. But then when they land on the strip in Las Vegas and they're paging like the owner of the white Corvette, your car's in the way, and then it gets toast as well when they crash. So somebody doesn't like Corvettes, but
So the thing about Corvettes, I'll let you in on a little secret, is that the body of the Corvette in those eras are very easily duplicated. So if you watch, I'm going to break something for you. I'm going to break a fourth wall. When you watch the Corvette convertible fall from the sky and land, and the way that it breaks apart, that's the way fiberglass breaks.
Oh yeah.
That is not the way that metal breaks.
Yeah.
So they didn't ruin that car.
Well, thank you.
It's like my opinion of this movie just going up.
I think the other thing, because I hadn't seen it before, this movie felt very 90s to me, and I don't know if that was a positive thing. Like when the agents show up from the DEA and the US Marshals, and those suits that they're wearing, I'm like, why were our suits so big in the late 90s? Because they were huge, like just big shoulder pads, like baggy pants.
Cusack looks like John Cusack looked like, okay, we have to go to this bar mitzvah, but you don't have a suit. So go put your Uncle Larry's suit on.
Yes.
And then he wears the ill-fitting Uncle Larry suit the entire movie. And John Cusack is a nice-looking guy. And this was the age that they were all good-looking. Even Steve Buscemi was young enough that you could consider him a nice-looking guy. I'm not saying he's not, but he's a weird-looking guy, right? But
He's
even John Malkovich, which I think, but he was still young enough that if they put him in the right light, he could be like an okay looking guy, right? He didn't quite, his eyeballs didn't pop out of his head as much in the 90s as they do now, right? And I love Steve Buscemi. I love his quietness in this movie because but I also think that this movie was a big movie for John Malkovich.
Oh, definitely.
It was supposed to be a shining light. It was supposed to be a shining light for Nicolas Cage. But I think what John did in this movie is he showed because heading up to this movie, he had played some very, very specific roles. And what this movie did for him is it made him a leading actor in a movie where he wasn't supposed to be one. And I think he did a really great job being the character that he was in this movie. He was this no nonsense, I'm not cheeky, because he's usually like, they make him the cheeky, weird, guy. And he was just a force to be reckoned with in this movie. And it was I really enjoyed it. And I don't think I noticed it at the time because when this movie came out, I hadn't seen a lot of him yet, right? And now I've seen a lot of John Malkovich movies, and I see what a different part this was for him, and I really enjoyed it a lot more watching it now.
We'll go back and watch like In the Line of Fire. That's very much kind of the same thing, playing kind of the straight evil guy. Yeah.
And John Malkovich is really good in this film as Cyrus the Virus, who Tracy is cosplaying as today for us.
Daily. I've got a picture. I've got a picture of him stuck in my mirror.
Tracy's just trying to be John Malkovich.
He's on my aspiration board.
I think one of the biggest inconsistencies of this movie that really didn't make it for me was Nicolas Cage's accent because, and I know you all have opinions about this.
Oh my God.
You'll let me get out my opinion and then you guys can all comment because I'm going to be kind of technical with it instead of just silly. I'm going to say my silly thing first. One, I think what he did when he knew he was getting this role and Bruckheimer and Bay said, you know what, this is this character, you're from the South, blah, blah, blah. I think he went and he did the class of Billy Bob Thornton in Of Mice and Men.
Sling Blade.
Sling Blade when he was doing this accent because it's the most Sling Blade I have ever seen in a non-Sling Blade moment. It works in Sling Blade. It doesn't work. This is the thing. So he's in the military and they make him out at the beginning to be a super nice guy and a super smart guy, right? He's smart. He's in the military. He's got this family. He's served his country and he comes home and he's the stand-up guy. And then he goes to prison. He's in prison. He's learning things. And then when they get him out of prison and on the plane, he's acting like Sling Blade. Like he literally is acting like he's stupid with his accent. You can have that accent and not sound like an idiot, right? Yeah. And I just think that was the most inconsistent thing. Well, a similar accent from
a
that
southern
area.
Accent, yes, you can get away with that.
Not sound like an idiot because I think that a lot of the time that he was using that accent and the way that he was using it, he sounded stupid and his character wasn't stupid.
No,
and so I think that's the thing that really threw me is that you are a very smart, very capable, very caring hero of our country, and the accent that Michael Bay allowed you to do, because they could have said, you know what, Nicolas Cage, that's not working out for us. Right. It was like somebody's wearing an outfit to the prom and everyone knows that it doesn't look good, but nobody says anything. And then everybody looks at the picture and they're like, yeah, that was awful. Nobody said anything to him that it was awful. Where are your friends? Michael Bay is not your friend. If he allowed that to happen to you, you should never do another movie with Michael Bay.
As a moviegoer, I felt that for a very long time that Michael Bay is not my friend. So
he takes the southern accent and he dips it in some beer batter and then deep fries it and comes out with some kind of hideous creation where it says his daughter.
Yeah.
It's like,
when he's speaking and interacting with others,
So I feel like if he would have. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say when he's talking to others, it's really thick, it's really bad. But then when he's writing the letter to his daughter, then all of a sudden it's Kevin Costner from Dances with Wolves writing in his journal. Like it's just gone, and he's just, and it's just so different. And I think that inconsistency, like you said, Val, it's almost distracting. Okay,
when he's writing letters back and
it
forth,
is distracting. I think if he would have been in the same accent when he was in prison, writing the letters and talking to his friend, because that accent was a little bit Southern, but not all the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But enough that we get it. But then we also know you're Nicolas Cage. You don't need to go all the way, and we'll still believe you in this Michael Bay movie that's make-believe, right? Stick to that. It was so up and down. But if he would have stuck to just that, like, not so Southern accent because he just wasn't good at it, I think we would have been okay. It worked in Robin Hood for Kevin Costner, right?
Oh yeah,
he didn't
absolutely.
do the accent because he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it, and everybody just said, "Well, we understand it's Robin Hood. It's okay for us that he doesn't have that accent because it's a movie and it's make believe and it's fine." I know some people panned him for it. I was fine with it, but the movie would have been like 10 times better.
He can do a Southern
if he wouldn't have had that stupid accent.
He can do a Southern accent. I mean, Raising Arizona. Coen brothers.
Yeah.
This is just that cranked up to 11. But did anybody else get the feeling like when he was writing to his daughter, did anybody have like Ken Burns Civil War flashbacks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is very similar to the Kevin Costner Dances with Wolves voice. But yeah, it was very Kevin Burns-ish.
My dearest daughter.
Yeah. There's so much going
on, and I don't think of you.
There's so much going on with his character too, because that's his motivation, right? To get home and meet his daughter that he's never met. And he loves very much, even though he's never met her. He's got the pink bunny and everything for her. But then when he's on the plane and has a chance to get out, he doesn't, because he's also an Army Ranger and he can't leave a man behind, his friend who was his friend in prison. And so,
well, and he didn't want to leave the lady to get raped and pillaged by everybody there, which I really appreciated the gesture that he wouldn't allow that to happen. And again, it's these subtle things that would have been more amped up if we wouldn't have been distracted by him.
Yes.
Like his accent. Like I just
and there's a lot to be distracted by with him in this movie.
About the movie.
Yeah. Like his accent is one thing that you can get distracted by. This is the most ripped that I think I've ever seen Nicolas Cage in any movie. Like he is built in this, and that hair is amazing in this movie from start to finish. Which next week we're talking about
Superman, you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You watch this movie and you're like, I can see why he was cast as Superman, because he looked the part in this, which is going to be a big difference to his hair that we're talking about next week in Pig, where it is not so magnificent.
I just love that he has a portable.
But this movie,
yes, with like Tracy, you need a wind machine. I've never had hair like that, so I don't. Yeah.
This movie, though, really, it shows you, if you step back and look at this and what led up to this was Hollywood and him really setting him up to be this big, die-hard leading character. With all the action scenes in this movie, all of the all-American boy in National Treasure, every movie that he has every 5 years, he ends up either in Vegas or leaving Vegas. Heading to Vegas, leaving Vegas, or whatever. But like all of the action stuff when he's, swinging on the ladder of the fire truck, and there's at least 12 beauty shots in this movie where they're up on his face and they're saying, this is your hero, this is your hero, they're telling the audience over and over and over, this is your leading man, this is your hero, this is what they were trying to make him. And those are the kinds of movies that he was choosing. And then it didn't exactly go in that direction for him. And us talking about Pig next week is very much the opposite of what he wanted to do. So this movie's kind of the upward crescendo before he heads back down the other side, because he was really, in Hollywood, was really trying to make him that leading man that didn't quite look like the leading man that we thought. He wasn't the John Cusack, and even John Cusack isn't the, Tom Cruise. But we all bought it. I bought it. I ate this movie up when it came out and I was younger,
Yeah.
Because accents, it didn't bother me at all when I was stupid.
Did anybody else feel like this movie is not aged particularly well?
Well, yeah, like I said, I haven't seen
a lot of stuff in there that I was kind of troubled by.
Well, there was, and like there was a lot of stereotypes in there. Like, that Cole Meany, the DEA agent that comes in, who I know from Star Trek because he was in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine as Chief O'Brien, who's like this loving, caring family man, and now he's this jerk in this. But he's a jerk from the minute he comes in because he parks in the handicap spot, and that is how you know, okay, this guy's obviously a jerk. He pulls into the handicap spot. Like, there are a lot of stereotypes, and there is a lot of stuff that is troubling in this that you wouldn't see in a movie today. But
yeah,
it's a product of its time.
But I mean, think you got Chris Rock falling out of a plane.
Dave Chappelle.
Sorry, Dave Chappelle. I'm having a morning.
Dave
Chappelle, who is this young, kid comedian, and he is falling out of a plane. When I watch the movie again, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot Dave Chappelle is in this.
Yeah,
I don't know why I thought Chris Rock was.
And he's
I just
really
watched
good.
Dave Chappelle's new special last week, and it's totally night and day.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He used to be great.
Yeah.
And now
this showed his potential as an actor, I think, because he wasn't bad as a character actor in this. I think he did a great job in the role that he had. And I agreed, Val, the ensemble cast in this is really, really strong. I mean, you've got John Cusack, you've got John Malkovich, you've got Danny Trejo, I mean, just some really good actors in some really interesting roles. Sorry, I had some background noise carrying.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a dated movie. You can definitely tell that it was made in the mid 90s. But I'm okay with it. There are some things that this is the thing. I don't mind going back to movies and seeing how far we've come when it comes to social issues, right? When you go back to this movie and you see, okay, this was a big stereotype, this was a big stereotype, this was a big stereotype, and look at what they did. And in this movie, it wasn't as loud as in other 80s and 90s movies.
That's true.
Because you had some LGBTQ stereotype, you had a lot of racial stereotypes, but then you also had some things that stuck out in, like John Malkovich's character was very no nonsense when he did say the comment to Dave Chappelle about, being a crack addict and whatever. And he's like, were you serious about that? And he's like, hand me the gun. And he gives him the gun. He's like, yeah, I was serious about it. He was the no nonsense guy. Like, I'm just here to do a job. None of these things matter to me. I don't care what color you are, what you do. I am here to get this done. But then you had moments where, Danny Trejo's character is a rapist, a rapist. And back in those times, they were making movies about serial killers and rapists that made those people the heroes. Like, they glorified that. And in this movie, they brought it down a notch. They basically, made Trejo's character mutilated by the end of the movie because it was not okay. Even the worst killer on the plane said that he thought that rapists were the lowest of the lowest of the low when it came to criminals, and so for me, those little moments as a woman in a movie, and the fact that they didn't allow him to rape the female officers at the time. They didn't have a lot of female officers that were allowed to do those kinds of transportations because they were female. And they thought, just like in the military, that can be something that can go wrong because you've got a female there. So for me, there was little nuances that were saying, okay, we're stepping forward, even though, you've got all of these other kind of comedic things happening that are a little bit outdated,
Yeah. My thing was
yeah.
What's that?
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the thing with Michael Bay is there is no ounce of subtlety to this man. He's like, we talk about how Nicolas Cage, you can ramp him up to 11 and you can have the crazy Nicolas Cage, and then you can have a more subdued version. There is no subdued version of Michael Bay. He is constantly at a 10 and 11, and there's just no stopping with him. And to me, he's so much more concerned with the spectacle than he is with the story. And that's why I don't particularly like him as a director. Like, I'm all for spectacle. I'm all for craziness. Like, I watched Snakes on a Plane in the theater and had a good time with it. I mean, it's not a great movie, but I had fun with it. But I don't know. There's just something with Michael Bay. I didn't like any of his Transformer movies. The Rock, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't know. He just hits you so hard over the head over and over and over. I feel pummeled by the time I finish watching one of his movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely can see that, but I can also understand the appreciation for that, and that, if that's what you're looking for in a movie, I don't know that anybody, like, if you are looking for that nonstop spectacle action, I don't know that there's anybody that does it better or to the same level that Michael Bay does.
He makes explosions pretty. I will give him that. But his editing drives me up the wall and I have ADHD, and it drives me nuts because it's like he can't go more than 2 seconds without cutting. It's like, give this scene a little bit of room to breathe, man. You don't have to cut every half second. It just is nuts.
Yeah. I don't
bring
know.
Up the Rock, but I love The Rock.
Yeah. And a lot of people do, and that was one that we could have talked about. Maybe that'll be next year's Nicolas Cage November. We'll visit The Rock.
Well, he's got over 200 films, so we've got a long ways to go.
We've got a lot of episodes still we can do.
And he's not stopping.
No, he's not. And when we talk about this next week, I don't know that he should be. Like, he's starting to, like, he's kind of entered that. It's weird to me because growing up in the 90s primarily, and remembering Nicolas Cage hitting this point where he was kind of becoming this big action star, and seeing some of these other things. And there's other things that I remember growing, or another thing I really liked that were just coming into the zeitgeist at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're like the elder statesmen of whatever it is, Weezer was one of my favorite bands in the 90s, and now they're kind of, Rivers Cuomo is like an elder statesman of alternative rock. Foo Fighters is another example of that, where it's like, they're like these serious, experienced artists that are, well respected in their field and everything.
Real quick,
I know what Tracy's gonna say.
If you have not seen the new Foo Fighters video, check it out. Oh my gosh. That song rocks anyway. I love that track on Medicine at Midnight.
But if you love Ted Lasso and Foo Fighters, you'll love that video.
Yeah.
They even do an homage to Caddyshack, which I thought was just great.
So, but I feel like Nicolas Cage has kind of entered that stage of his life of being kind of an elder statesman in the acting field. And, he's getting some of these more serious parts and things like that. So it's interesting to see that transition.
He knows who he is, and he knows what he wants to do. And one of the things that I've read about him and some interviews is that he feels kind of, we talked a little bit off the air about the movie Tick, Tick, Boom with Andrew Garfield, but Nicolas Cage feels like he's only got a certain amount of time, and he's really restless. And so he's like, I don't want to sit still. I don't want to waste any moment. I don't want to waste a second. And so he's like, I'm constantly working because that's my life. That's what I do. That's what I'm here for. And so it's interesting in that regard, because I wonder, I don't know how that affects his family life or anything else, but he did what we figured out 5 films this year.
Mm-hmm.
At least.
He's doing quite a bit. He's working quite a bit right now, which is great. So, well, what trying to see if we're at time to see if we're ready. No, we're anyway.
We have plenty of time.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is over the top. I think it's cheesy. I think it's still, but it is what it is. And I think it's everything that's meant to be. And I do think that, there are moments, you mentioned Die Hard, Val. There are moments, especially at the end, where he does look very John McClane-ish. Like, he is looking very Die Hard.
This reminds me, we talked about with National Treasure, this is the reluctant hero, right? He's this everyday guy who's thrown into this extraordinary circumstance because he's not your typical action hero. He's not your Henry Cavill that looks like he could pick up a mountain, he doesn't look like that kind of action hero. And so I like the fact that he's kind of this non-traditional cast into this role, very much like John McCain or McClane, not McCain.
Nothing like John McCain.
Big difference.
Who also here, but actually was like in life as a, anyway.
I think though, like that's again, I'm going to go back to it. At this time, that's what they were trying to sell him as, because all of the movies that he was doing at this time were that kind of person. Because The Rock, he's not the hero that, the regular hero. In National Treasure, he's not the regular hero. So during this whole time, those are the movies that he was doing, because I really think that he had a plan, and those were the movies that he was choosing so that he could be, this franchise movie maker, this, main man, but wasn't the one that we all, thought, because we had like the Tom Cruises and the Brad Pitts and, again, all of that. But you have City of Angels, Face Off, Con Air, The Rock, all of those movies are very similar. And then he goes to Snake Eyes, which I don't even want to talk about. And then 8mm. 8mm to me was a really interesting choice to do, because then he goes to Gone to 60 Seconds and The Family Man, which puts him right back in where he wanted to go. Because 8mm, yes, it's kind of the same character, but that movie was so odd and so interesting. And some of the best quotes that I can never say out loud on this show ever. But I also think Con Air, in that it's not everyone's favorite movie, but there are so many amazing memes and quotes that have come out of Con Air. I love this movie just because of that. Because you could have never seen this movie, but you see the memes, you see the quotes, and you know what's happening. And that is the height of pop culture, which I think was the mid-90s. That was like, they were creating this pop culture bubble of the 90s where the music, the packaging, it was all about packaging. Whereas now, it's about marketing and stuff, but there were these formulas in the mid-90s and this packaging that was something that was in no other generation of movies before. And his little pocket of movies all in that time was, this very formulated packaging.
Yep. I speaking of, I think one of my favorite lines from the film, when, at one point in the movie, he tells Agent Larkin, "There's only two men in the world that I trust. Myself, and you're not the other one." And then at the end, after everything's happened, and he says, "Agent Larkin, there are now three men in the world that I trust." And then I love that he has to ask, "Am I one of them?" Obviously, like, why would he say that to you if you weren't one of the three men that he trusts now? Like, that would be the stupidest thing. Oh, John Cusack needs that validation. He's one of the three now.
When you're wearing that suit, you kind of have to. You just feel like you're all floating around in some oversized suit. You do need to know that you're pretty.
Yeah. The suits are, anyway. But that was the look at the time, and it's just weird. But and even the fact that they were both like light colored suits. A lot of the federal agents that we'll see in movies now are always very dark colored suits, and it's anyway.
But in the 90s, man, in the 80s and 90s, it was all about the light colors.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there are, and obviously his hair has become iconic from this film, and it's one that, like, you're right, Val. It is instantly recognizable when you see a meme from this film, when you see a GIF from this film. Like, that it's from Con Air, even if you've never seen the movie. You're like, yeah, I know that that's from Con Air.
Right.
And so it has had a huge impact pop culture wise, like a lot of things from that time. So, but I think this even more. I mean, because you look at it, The Rock was, I think, a pretty big commercial success. And there were other, Face Off was a big commercial success at the time and things like that. But those movies haven't endured in the pop culture sense like this one has. But I think it's just the idea of a plane full of convicts that take over the flight. And I don't know. And the premise of the film just works for people. So I'm going to kick off the grading for this one.
Okay.
like I said, it was a lot of cheese. It was a lot. And I think if I had seen this when I was younger, I would feel differently about it because I would have a attachment to it and it wouldn't have stood out as much that it hasn't aged as well. So for me, though, it's probably in the C plus range, which is low for me. I don't typically go that low, but like I get why it's fun and I get why people like it. It just wasn't for me. And so that's where I'm gonna grade it. Tracy?
I'm
Tracy.
gonna piggyback on what you said, Jake. It's Michael Bay, and he's got his audience, and that's awesome. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not mine. It's a lot. It's just, I don't know, on a technical level. If I start noticing the editing while I'm watching the film, trying to enjoy it, then there's some issues. Like I can go back down and rewatch a film and break it down, but when I'm trying to watch a film, I'm just trying to watch it for the story and for the characters and for that type of thing. And there's not a lot of characters to root for. That accent, it just was driving me up the wall. His daughter, and it's fine for what it is. And I don't begrudge anybody. I have so many stupid movie guilty pleasures. I'm not going to discount anybody enjoying what they enjoy. This one for me just isn't there, so I'm going to go in the C range too. I'll just go straight C.
I do think that this movie, when it comes to Michael Bay, is probably his most like over the top in acting wise. Like I expect from him, because I enjoy some of the Transformer movies. I love The Rock. But in those movies, there's actually some really good acting and better writing than there is in this movie. Whereas this movie is more of a pop culture success and phenomenon. I do think that the acting in this movie, all except for, I think, John Malkovich is over the top. I think John Malkovich is that kind of, holding everything and keeping it grounded kind of thing. I think the Star Trek actor, that was too much for me. I, at some point, just wanted to smack him and say, we get it. Like, you don't have to be, is this your first acting job? Because sometimes subtlety can also make you a butthead as well, right? So again, I think he let everyone just be so over the top that sometimes it was distracting. But I do think that the action, he does edit this film like an action trailer. All of it's like a trailer. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm okay with that in this movie because I didn't expect it to be anything else, right? What were you going to say, Tracy?
I was going to say, we only briefly talked about it, but the Suicide Squad, it's like James Gunn, it is unleashed. Like nobody's holding him back. He's just doing exactly what he wants. And it's all the best and the worst of him. And I feel the same way. This is Michael Bay unleashed. This is all of Michael Bay's good stuff and bad stuff all at the same time.
Yeah, I really think he was like, okay, well, I guess this is what they want, so let's just let it go. He didn't really keep anyone in check, and the only person that kept themselves in check was John Malkovich.
Yeah, and a little bit Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi is just always Steve Buscemi, though. Like in every movie that he's in, he is Steve Buscemi. But I think that Nicolas Cage did have some redeeming moments in the film that were later sideswiped by his accent. And I think that is good directing is to really keep someone consistent there. So I do kind of blame the direction for that. I don't really blame Nicolas Cage for that. I enjoy this movie. There was a lot of things watching it this time because I haven't seen it in probably 5 or 6 years that I forgot about. There was a lot of things I forgot about, but it is enjoyable. I'm not giving it a B-. I am giving it a C+ just because I do think that as a Michael Bay movie, and I don't hate Michael Bay. I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's a Michael Bay movie, let's go.
Right.
But it doesn't deter me from going to a film because Michael Bay made it. I'm fine. But I do think that in this film, this could have been a better film if he would have been a better director for this film. Because all of these actors are fantastic actors. And it's up to the director to pull that out of you. or to bring it back.
Right,
the actor has their idea of it, but you've got to give them a little bit of feedback. And so I feel like if that's what they were going for, to have Nicolas Cage have that accent, okay. But for me, if that would have changed, this movie would have been a B+ for me. If he would have not had that accent, this would have changed the whole movie for me.
An entire grade.
It would have made it so much better for me. I didn't realize the first few times that I had seen this movie how distracting that was until I rewatched it yesterday. Yeah, because it just made him
up there in the top 5.
Character's not stupid. You're setting up a hero, and I've heard people from the South. We've watched movies with that, accents. Some people probably think we have accents, right? But he is not a stupid character. They even say it like numerous times in the movies when they're trying to say not all criminals are these animals. Why are you saying criminals are animals? They're humans, and this guy's different. He was in the military. This was, a situation. So they keep saying it to us over and over, and then you go to Nicolas Cage and he sounds like an idiot. So I think that they set everything up, and then if you would have just fixed the accent, it was that one little thing that was a big thing that could have made the movie totally different. And you have to recognize that as a director.
But I do want to say I really appreciate at the end how out of the blue Agent Larkin and then the other guy from the DEA are like just best friends, because at the end he's like, sorry about your car. He's like, don't worry about it. Like, that's it. And they're fine. Like, they yelled at each other the whole time, cussed each other out the whole movie. And then at the end, it's like, it's fine.
No hard feelings.
I don't know, when you go through something like that, and then he says the comment like, maybe we should have just shot him over the desert, because they see this billions of dollars in Vegas that they both have to face that tomorrow morning with some board, So in my mind, I think now they know we have to be on the same side because we're in this together, So for me, I got that moment, because I've been in that moment with people that I don't necessarily get along with before, and at the end of a big mess, you're like, okay, like we gotta be on each other's side.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There is Con Air from us. We would love to hear what you think about it. Make sure you leave a comment on Facebook, or you can tweet at us, or on Instagram when we post this. You can also send us an email, podcast@moviesthatmakeus.com, and let us know what you think about Con Air. Let us know what movies we should do next year for Nicolas Cage November. If we bring it back, maybe we won't bring it back because maybe it was a flop. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think people have liked it. So let us know, because next week we are going to be talking about Pig, and that will be the end of November for us. So
crazy how fast it's going.
Yeah, it is really crazy. But yeah, you can follow us in all the places. Oh, look, I put this together. So now we can do this. Hold on.
Ooh.
Jake's about to get technical. Oh, look.
You can follow us on Twitter @MoviesMakeUs. So make sure you go to Twitter and follow us there. You can also follow us on Instagram @MoviesThatMakeUs. And of course, we would really love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/moviesthatmakeus. So follow us in all the places. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, we won't see you at the movies.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been a Stolen Droids Media production.